And contrary to sworn representations to the United States government, many of the Guardian's office staff continued to work for OSA. One example was OSA's lead in-house lawyer, Kendrick Moxon, who was named in the 266-page stipulation of evidence in the case of U.S. versus Hubbard for providing fabricated evidence to the FBI. And today, Scientology attorney Moxon continues to fabricate evidence, and the Office of Special Affairs is headquartered in Hollywood and Gilman Hot Springs, California. David Miscavige, the totalitarian leader of this paramilitary cult, lives there in an armored building and often travels in an armored car. His actions and orders go out around the world, and the money comes back into the United States or into bank accounts in Luxembourg or the Caribbean. Obviously, all the money does not come from church members paying for courses in auditing. The real money comes from other sources and activities. But how that money comes and goes is another story for another day. On October 9, 2001, less than 30 days after the al-Qaeda attacks on the United States, the OSA legal unit, known as Moxon and Coburn, renewed the copyright on Scientology's policy called Targets Defense. In this church policy and practice document, certain vital targets are identified, and I quote, T1, depopularizing the enemy to a point of total obliteration. T2, taking over the control or allegiance of the heads or proprietors of all news media. T3, taking over the control or allegiance of key political figures. T4, taking over the control or allegiance of those who monitor international finance. And Hubbard also wrote, and I quote, all men shall be my slaves. All men shall grovel at my feet and not know why, close quote. With Hubbard's manual on brainwashing and his auditing processes and training drills, Scientology enslaves minds. And with Scientology's promises to cure all ills and ailments, it unlawfully practices medicine, stealing people's health and sacrificing their lives for more and more auditing dollars, until it is too late often for conventional medicine to work. And you can read about some of these deaths on whyaretheydead.com. The list of victims who are dead, often through mysterious and shockingly similar suicides, is long and it covers decades. The list of people who have disappeared is also long and covers decades. Meanwhile, the Church of Scientology continues to insist that only Scientology and its auditing processes and copyrighted procedures, such as Knots 34, can cure physical and mental conditions and diseases. The Church of Scientology is killing people by the unlawful practice of medicine, as well as by its fair game retaliation against those who impede its goals. Scientology is destroying lives, liberties, and the pursuit of happiness of countless people. If this United States government protected racketeering and terror group was not called a church, it would require medical and other licenses and the fully informed consent of the medical patient or the commercial customer. In fact, instead of full and informed disclosure, the Scientology enterprise requires its parishioners to sign away all of their civil rights. Scientology killed Lisa McPherson, holding her captive in a room for 17 days, denying her non-Scientology medical care until she was dehydrated, covered with 110 cockroach bites, and dead. Dead is part of a Scientology policy and procedure for handling a person having a psychotic break. or going crazy while engaged in Scientology mental processing. Scientology's leader, David Miscavige, was personally involved in Lisa's isolation, introspection rundown, and death. People sometimes die, he callously said. And what did this church do after they had killed Lisa McPherson and paid over $50 million in tax-exempt dollars to defeat the court claims of her family through international public corruption, litigation terrorism, international psychoterrorism, blackmail, and fraud? This church, claiming to be the most ethical group on the planet, ordered its lawyers to draft and its parishioners to sign a new general release and waiver of all liability, agreeing that the Church of Scientology is free of any liability for death, injury, or damage suffered in any way or connected with Scientology religious services or spiritual assistance. Why should the name Church of Scientology be enough to enable the Scientology enterprise to change and waive the laws, rules, and regulations that apply to all other organizations? The Roman Catholic Church, it was liable for the sexual abuse of parishioners. And in fact, the Church of Scientology itself has repeatedly covered up staff sexual abuse and even rape with the use of psychoterror and gag agreements. Hubbard also wrote that a Scientologist can get away with murder. Amazingly, the one racketeering enterprise in the United States that is now above the law is the Church of Scientology. Perhaps that is because of the 1993 secret tax agreement between the IRS and Scientology, which in effect makes Scientology the established state religion of America by giving it tax benefits, global promotion, and protection from Interpol. These are unique privileges and government assistance that are denied to all other religions. Last February, in the case of Sklar versus IRS, where Jewish parents were seeking the same religious education deductions exclusively allowed to Scientologists, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge said, quote, "The view of the IRS that it can unconstitutionally violate the Constitution by treating Scientology more favorably than other religions in terms of what is allowed as deductions does intrude into the Establishment Clause." Close quote. So how did this constitutional outrage happen? 3 decades ago, Scientology agents broke into and infiltrated 135 government departments and embassies in Washington, D.C. as part of Operation Snow White, which is an ongoing Scientology project. The worst criminal infiltration of the United States government in our nation's history was perpetrated by none other than the Church of Scientology. 11 of Scientology's top executives went to prison, including Mary Sue Hubbard herself. Scientology's current lead lawyer, Kendrick Moxon, narrowly avoided a similar sentence for providing false evidence to the FBI. So it seems unbelievable that on October 1, 1993, the United States government, as a result of criminal blackmail, intimidation, terrorism, and public corruption, granted the Church of Scientology tax-exempt status with unique tax privileges, tax benefits, and deductions that are expressly and constitutionally denied to all other churches